No matter what type of video I post, there are always the same 3 questions that I get asked. What is this cable? What is this keyboard that I'm using? And whether I already have a girlfriend or not. And today I'm finally gonna answer one of those questions. The Tekkusai X LUMINKEY collab is a Hall effect keyboard that I am absolutely stoked about, that I've already been using for over an entire month, and also been a part of the development in the early stages regarding the layout and some other small stuff. And before we get into the video, I do want to mention that this unit was indeed sent out to me by Tekkusai himself. Huge shout out to him for sending it out, but rest assured my thoughts and opinions are not purchasable and will always be my own. And also do keep in mind that reviews are mainly subjective and that you might not view things the same way that I do. Getting right into the unboxing experience, you will receive your keyboard in this cardboard and also a second cardboard box to protect it even further. It will also be plastic sealed, and you also get this cardboard with all of the main keybinds that you have here. This will also be updated in the future since there is some stuff missing in my opinion. Inside of the packaging, you also get a keycap and key switch puller. You also do get a USB-A to USB-C cable that is quite stiff and also quite short. And you also get some spare switches inside of the packaging, which is always nice to see. And the entire keyboard comes pre-assembled with these high-quality PBT keycaps in this silver aluminum case, which is very high quality. Here's what the rear side of the keyboard looks like. It has sort of a frosted glass over the logo here on the back side, where this sort of weight is. And if you want to open up the keyboard, here are the 8 screws for doing so. You also have 4 rubber corner feet, and you cannot adjust the typing angle of the keyboard. Please ignore this tape up here. That's only something that I use for my table because my table is a bit wobbly. And then here is what the side profile looks like, so that you can get a better sense of the typing angle and also the front height. The total front height comes in at around 16 to 17 millimeters. At the moment, it is only available in this ANSI layout. As I did mention before, I did help with the layout of this keyboard so that it now has a blocker here and also on the right side, which just makes it look a bit more aesthetic and also just makes it a bit more unique looking to other keyboards. A lot of keyboards have 3 1U keys here on the right side, which in my personal opinion doesn't look too attractive. And then of course you also get a volume wheel up here on the top right side that you cannot configure at this very moment, and also one indication light here on the top right for displaying your caps lock and also your profiles, which I will show you in the software segment. There's also only going to be this color and this specific model for the initial release, but things might change if this keyboard ends up selling well. The keycaps are double shot PBT and pretty high quality in terms of the overall feel of them, but they are not too textured. So if you don't like really smooth PBT keycaps, you're probably not going to like these. I'm also sorry for the keyboard being a bit dusty, but I really have been maining the shit out of it over the last month. The caps definitely do get a bit shiny over time, so be warned. And because they wanted to go for a more premium, not as much of a gamery look, the keycaps also aren't translucent despite there being a RGB backlight. Getting to the switches, they are a custom union well switch that you might not have heard of. These are definitely very linear and also definitely on the lighter side at around 35 grams of force for actuation. They're definitely not as progressive as most Hall effect keyboard switches that are out on the market right now, so they don't just straight up bounce right back at you. They are also a closed back switch, and they are also definitely a bit more on the clacky side, but not as loud as a lot of those crazy clacky switches like the Gateron Delta, for example. They're definitely one of the many reasons why this keyboard sounds absolutely amazing in a stock condition. The keycaps also definitely do help with the sound, and so does the mounting system that they've gone for, which we'll go into with the teardown of the keyboard. And for the final consumer batch, the stabilizers will also be near perfect from what I've seen from other reviewers receiving that type of unit, but because mine is a bit earlier, my stabs are definitely not perfect, but rest assured that that has been fixed for the final consumer batch. It does actually come with an FR4 plate, which I normally am not a huge fan of, especially for Hall effect keyboards, but for some reason it just works. And if you want to hear what it actually sounds like, here's the sound test for you guys. Getting into the teardown of the keyboard, I do want to mention that this volume wheel up here in the top right can actually be quickly disassembled because it's actually magnetic. The magnet is inside the other part of the volume wheel, and you have these two screws here that you can either tighten or loosen depending on how you want your volume wheel to feel and how much friction you want there to be. So if your keyboard finally arrived and you have a very rattly and loose volume wheel, definitely make sure to tighten these screws more. After loosening the screws from the bottom case, you can simply take off the top case to reveal this wonderful CNC piece of aluminum. And here you can see how insanely thick the bottom case actually is, and also how low the front height really is. It is simply gasket mounted with these rubber gaskets that sit between the bottom and the top case. And in order to fully disassemble the keyboard, you will have to screw out the volume wheel, which is simply secured by two screws here. And then you can simply lift off the entire module here. This is what the PCB looks like from the rear. I definitely want to mention that the stabilizers are plate mounted and not PCB mounted in order to save costs, because according to Tekkusai, this would have cost more than $16 additional on top of the price that it's going for right now at $199. So you will have to settle for the plate mount stabs, but after the QC test that I've seen for the new consumer batch, they look great. The bottom case itself is very massive, and on top of that bottom case then comes this thin sheet of foam. Right on top of the PCB, you do have a thin sheet of PET. You then have a solid layer of foam and your FR4 plate. Here's what the rubber gaskets look like. Before we get into the WebDriver, I do want to show you how I actually change your profiles, because that is one of the most important things on a Hall of Fame keyboard if you have a typing and also a gaming profile especially. The way that you have to do it is hold Function and one of the profile keys, which is going to be either left or right shift. I just use the right shift. And then either 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever type of profile you have. And it does also get confirmed with the corresponding LED underneath the keycap as well. I personally just have my typing profile on my profile 1, then I have my gaming profile on profile 2, and then I also have a OSU profile over on number 3. I do wish that these keybinds would actually just be on the piece of cardboard or somewhere described on the WebDriver itself, and I also have given that as feedback to Tekkusai, since I do find these keybinds a bit unintuitive. The WebDriver you can find over at titan.tekkus.ai. I'll link it down in the description below and also show it to you guys here on screen. On the left side, you have your different types of profiles, and if you want to know what my profiles look like, or you want the same settings as me and give it a try, then I'll also link the profiles down in the description below for you guys. The first thing I want you guys to do when receiving your keyboard is definitely going into the settings and upgrading your firmware if there happens to be a new version available. At the time of recording this video, 1.14 is the latest version, but I highly assume that there's going to be a new one once the keyboard is fully released. Here in the settings page, you can also set your polling rate to 8K, although it should be 8K by default. The key stability I simply have set to light, and you can see the eye here for more information. And if you want to export or import any files, you can do that here as well. For the performance page, you can select any amount of keys here. Let's say your WASD keys, for example. Here you can change the travel distance of the actuation point in 0.01 millimeter steps, which is very accurate. You can also change your dead zones here if that's anything you want to do, but personally, I don't do that ever. So I like to keep my dead zone as low as possible, since I do play with an actuation point of around 0.35 millimeters on my gaming keys anyway. You can set up your rapid trigger here on the right side and have it either continuous or not continuous. And what that means is that the range of the rapid trigger extends all the way up above your actuation point once you've pressed the switch. Then for the sensitivity, you can customize your up and your downstroke if you want to do that. Yet again, you can set the accuracy in 0.01 millimeter steps, but also finer than that. But for some reason, the keys don't work for me right now. Over in the function segment, you can set up your SOCD or RS, which would also be known as Rappy Snappy, for example. If you want to know more about these types of functionalities, I'll definitely leave some information down in the description below for you guys, since I do think that outside of games where this is banned, such as Counter-Strike 2, for example, that it's definitely an advantage and can be very useful and also very intuitive in games in terms of strafing. There's also dynamic keystroke, but there is no mod tab at the moment. You also do have gamepad functionalities if double movement on Fortnite is something that you want to do, or if you simply want to play card games and steer with your keyboard a bit more accurate. And over on the main segment, you can set up all of your keybinds, and here are the current functionalities. You do actually have non-US hashtag and non-US backslash, which I'm a huge fan of. This was actually added because of my feedback, and I'm very happy that they added that within a day even. So if there's anything missing, definitely let them know down in the comments below. You also have F-row keybinds all the way up to F24, which is highly useful. And if you set up all of your layers in your first profile, you can then adapt them here with the same as previous layer button, so that you don't have to redo all of your functionalities over and over again. You can set up to 3 function layers. Here's what mine looks like. I just have F13 up here, which I actually use for recording with shadow play. Then I have F14 and F15 that I have bound to Discord for muting and deafening. I have my power key up here in P so that I can turn off my PC instantly, and then I also have the non-US backslash so that I can still have access to less than and greater than despite being on an ANSI keyboard and using an ISO layout. Over in the lighting segment, you can set up all types of effects. You can also set it to a static color, but I do want to mention that there's no per key lighting, only lighting for the entire keyboard. You can set up the brightness and the speed of the effects over here on the right side, and you can also set up the color over here, but you cannot customize it further than these colors, which is very weird, and I really do hope that this gets changed very soon. I personally always have the LEDs off, but I do actually use the light bar up here on the top right for all of my profiles so that I can always see what profile that I'm currently on. Here for my gaming profile, for example, I have the light bar set to blue, but you can also use these effects here, such as breathing and color cycle. And yet again, you only have access to these colors here. That's about it for the WebDriver though. I do think that it's quite minimalistic. The only thing that I can see that's currently missing that might annoy some people is not only the color wheel, but also the lack of mod tap. But besides that, they do have SOCD, they do have RS. The rapid trigger settings are also definitely there, and I don't really see anything missing here. And especially in types of keybinds, I do think that they pretty much nailed it. The only thing that is truly missing are of course going to be macros, although you can simply use a macro software just like the one from Wooting, for example. And also the volume wheel is simply not customizable at the moment. Before we get into the final conclusion, I do quickly want to talk about the performance of the keyboard and also how it's felt in-game to me personally compared to all the other 12 Hall effect keyboards that I personally own. I personally do not do any latency testing myself, and if you want to see that, I'll leave a link down in the description below for you guys for Jerrer, who does a lot of latency testing, and we'll definitely include it inside of his video once it's up within the next week. But in terms of the feeling and also just the response in-game, for me personally, it has felt absolutely great and definitely on par with any of my top tier over $200 Hall effect keyboards. I have a Raka 60 Atlas, which is known for being the fastest Hall effect keyboard on the entire market. I also do have a Wooting 60 V2, and I can comfortably say that this felt absolutely on par in terms of the performance. So not only does this keyboard shine in terms of sound, feel, and aesthetics, but also does it simply just perform great. Now, to the conclusion. Who is this keyboard for? If you want or need a Hall effect keyboard, but you also want it to sound and feel good, this is absolutely the Hall effect keyboards to buy right now. Of course, this layout is not going to be for everyone. Some people want a TKL, some people want an 85%, and some people just want to stick with a 60 or 65%. And I absolutely do understand that, but for people who like the look of this layout and also just the functionality of it, this is an absolutely amazing Hall effect keyboard. I really love that Tekkusai has gone into the details of pretty much making his own switch by fully customizing a switch that almost nobody has ever seen or heard of. And I think that the linearity of the switch just makes this type of Hall effect keyboard shine. The stem wobble on these switches is not quite the tightest I've ever seen, but it's also absolutely fine and definitely on the tighter side compared to most switches that I've tried so far. As you might be able to see on some of the keycaps, the font isn't perfectly centered. But besides that, I personally cannot find any flaws on this keyboard. I think that Tekkusai together with LUMINKEY pretty much nailed this release, and for the moment, this is absolutely my main, because it doesn't only perform in game, it also has a layout that is absolutely awesome for editing videos and just functionality and work and all that type of stuff. I really hope that the price here in Europe is not gonna be too inflated, but coming in at $199 in the US definitely sounds fair to me. Anyway, that's about it for this video though. If you've at all been enjoying the content, definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell right next to it for any upcoming reviews. I've also started streaming a lot more over on Twitch, so definitely give me a follow and turn on notifications there at twitch.tv/jkufps. But for any further unboxing live streams, I will also be streaming them here on YouTube from now on, so keep your eyes open for that. I also do want to give a quick shout out to any of my members on my YouTube channel here, which is going to be this person up here in the corner, so shout out to you. If you do want to support any of my content, I would highly appreciate that, of course. And the best way to do that is definitely going to be donating directly to the channel, which I have a link for down here at the top of the description. Or you could also join this channel as a member and have your name shout out at the end of the video next time. Huge thanks for sticking through to the end, and I'll see you guys pretty soon. Peace out.